She sat proudly, handing my sister a luxury trip, while tossing me an expired coupon like trash. Then she said, "Be grateful I even remembered you," as everyone laughed. And I sat there, frozen in humiliation. My mom handed my sister an all-expense-paid Europe trip in front of everyone, then gave me an expired coupon and said, "You're lucky I even remembered you." That was the moment I realized I wasn't just the forgotten one in the family. I was the joke. It happened on New Year's Day at our annual family brunch, which my mom loved to host like she was Martha Stewart. She'd spend the whole week before posting Instagram stories about homemade centerpieces, gold-plated cutlery, and her signature grapefruit mimosa. It was all performative. Everything in her world was. The only thing she actually put effort into was making sure my younger sister Mika looked perfect in every shot. Mika, the golden child. The future influencer, as my mom called her, with 70,000 followers and a new boyfriend every 3 months. Meanwhile, I, Taryn, had been freelancing as a graphic designer, scraping together gigs to pay rent in a shared apartment and trying not to be a burden to anyone. Apparently, even that was too much for them. I wasn't going to come this year. I swear, I sat in the car for 20 minutes outside the house, thinking about turning around. But some stupid part of me still hoped. Maybe this year would be different. Maybe they'd ask how my last project went. Maybe they'd say they were proud of me. I walked in 5 minutes late. My mom looked up from the head of the table where she was refilling Mika's mimosa. She gave me a once-over and said, "Taryn, I was starting to think you weren't coming, again." Mika smirked and raised her glass. Her new boyfriend, some finance bro named Zach, nodded toward me and whispered something that made her laugh. I ignored it. Took off my coat. Sat at the far end of the table where no one had set a place. "Oops," my mom said with a faux gasp. "Forgot to set one for you." No one moved. I pulled a chair from the hallway and grabbed a plate from the kitchen myself. Brunch was awkward, as usual. Mika talked about her upcoming collaboration with some skincare brand. Mom beamed and said she should move to LA to really make it. Zach bragged about how he just leased a Tesla. And when I mentioned that I was working on a children's book illustration project, Mom cut me off mid-sentence to ask Mika how many followers she'd gained last week. It was like talking into a vacuum. Then came gift time. My mom's new tradition since she started making good money as a regional sales director. One gift for each person at the table, wrapped in pristine gold foil with a handwritten tag. All except mine, which looked like a wrinkled drugstore bag shoved under a chair. First, Mika opened her envelope and squealed. 2 round-trip tickets to Italy. Rome, Florence, Venice. "For you and Zach," my mom said proudly. "You deserve it after everything this year." Mika leapt up to hug her. Everyone clapped. Clapped. Like she had won a Nobel Prize. Then Mom turned to me, her voice almost bored. "Oh, right, Taryn." She reached under the table, pulled out the wrinkled bag, and tossed it toward me like it was trash. "Happy New Year," she said flatly. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single coupon, expired, and a used scratch-off lottery ticket that had already been scratched. I blinked. "It's for this boutique on 5th, she said casually, though they closed down during COVID. "So, guess it's more of a keepsake." I couldn't even speak. Then came the line that gutted me. "You're lucky I even remembered you." I froze. My stomach twisted into knots. I looked up and saw Zach trying not to laugh. Mika had her phone out, probably texting about it in real time. My mom just sipped her mimosa and scrolled on her iPad. And then, like she hadn't just publicly humiliated me, she added, "You should try smiling, Taryn. You always look so sour. That's probably why you're still single." Something inside me cracked. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stood up, set the bag down gently on the table, and walked out the front door. Nobody stopped me. Nobody called my name. I walked down the driveway into the icy wind without my coat. My boots crunched against the frozen ground as I kept walking, street after street, until my fingers went numb and my ears stung with cold. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay there. Not another minute pretending I mattered to people who treated me like I didn't exist unless it was to be mocked. I was half a mile from the house when I heard a car slow down beside me. A voice called out, "Taryn?" I turned. It was a red Chevy, windows half frosted. I recognized the driver immediately, Aunt Roslyn, my dad's younger sister. I hadn't seen her in years. She'd distanced herself from our family after Dad passed away, and rumor had it she couldn't stand my mom. She rolled down the window, eyes scanning me in confusion. "What the hell are you doing out here without a coat?" I tried to answer. Nothing came out. My jaw trembled from the cold, or maybe from everything that had just unraveled. Roslyn's eyes narrowed. Without waiting for me to answer, she slammed the car into park, got out, and yanked open the back door. "Get in the car," she said, her voice hard but warm. "Now." I hesitated. Then, behind me, in the distance, just faintly, I heard laughter echoing from the house, and something in me snapped all over again. I climbed into the back seat without a word. Rosalind didn't ask any more questions. But 5 minutes later, as we pulled into a gas station to grab coffee and warm up, she looked over her shoulder and said, "Did she give you that damn coupon again?" I blinked. "What?" Rosalind's jaw clenched. "She gave that exact same expired coupon to your dad once, just before she kicked him out." I stared at Rosalind like she'd just spoken a language I didn't know. "She gave that same expired coupon to your dad once, just before she kicked him out." My stomach dropped. My throat went dry. I pressed my frozen hands between my thighs, trying to warm them, but it wasn't the cold making me shake anymore. I hadn't thought about that day in years. My dad, quiet, kind, always a little too gentle for someone like my mother, left one night after a fight I only half heard through the vents in our old house. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't take much with him. I was 12. I thought he just gave up. Mom told everyone he walked out that he was selfish, a coward. Even then, I didn't fully believe her, but she repeated it so often, so convincingly, that after a while I started repeating it too. Rosalind pulled into a gas station, killed the engine, and turned to face me. "You okay?" I nodded. "Lieutenant." She sighed, then got out without another word. A minute later, she came back with 2 steaming cups of gas station coffee and a pair of mittens she must have grabbed off a clearance rack inside. "I know they're ugly," she said, handing them to me, "but they're warm." I slid them on, and for some reason that tiny act of kindness hit harder than anything had all day. We sat in silence for a while, the heater humming low, the windows fogging gently around us. Then Rosalind spoke again, softer now. "She used to do the same thing to your dad. Tear him down in front of people, make him feel small like a joke, then act like he was the problem for not laughing." I stared at my coffee, the lid still untouched. "She always said he left because he couldn't handle being a real parent." Rosalind snorted bitterly. He left because he was afraid that if he stayed, he'd start to believe all the things she said about him. I didn't realize I was crying until I felt the tears drip onto the cardboard cup. Roz reached across the console and squeezed my arm. "You didn't deserve any of this, you hear me?" I nodded again. This time, it was almost true. We pulled up to Rosalind's place around 6:30. A 1-story brick house at the edge of town with a crooked mailbox and a sagging front porch. It didn't look like much, but when she opened the door, warmth hit me in waves. The smell of wood smoke, old books, and something sweet, like cinnamon, wrapped around me like a blanket. A calico cat blinked lazily at me from the couch. A dog thumped its tail once, then went back to sleep. Roz tossed her keys in a bowl by the door and turned to me. "You're staying here tonight. No arguments." I didn't argue. She showed me the guest room, a small space with a handmade quilt and a window looking out at the woods behind her house. The walls were lined with framed photos, her and my dad as kids, a picture of them at the lake, both sunburned and laughing. I stood there for a long time just looking. "Hungry?" she asked gently from the hallway. I nodded. 10 minutes later, we were sitting at her kitchen table with grilled cheese and tomato soup in front of us. She didn't push me to talk, just let me sit there, slowly eating, slowly breathing. My chest still felt tight, but not in the same way. Less like drowning, more like trying to remember how to swim. Somewhere around the last bite of sandwich, she said, "I should have stepped in sooner." I looked up. I knew something was wrong. I thought maybe your mom would wake up. Maybe she'd realize what she was doing. I swallowed hard. She never was going to. Roz nodded. A long silence passed. I finally asked, "What happened the night he left?" She didn't pretend not to know who I meant. She told him he was worthless, that he'd ruined her life. Then she handed him that same coupon and told him to use it to buy himself a clue. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. And he just left? He didn't want to. He called me crying. But he said if he stayed, it would kill him, bit by bit. He said he couldn't fight anymore. Something inside me crumbled. I had spent years wondering why he left me, why he never came back, why he didn't try harder. But now I saw it clearly. He hadn't abandoned me. He'd saved himself. And I had stayed all this time. I excused myself to the guest room, shut the door, curled up on top of the quilt with my back to the wall. My mind kept replaying everything. This morning, that coupon, my mom's smirk, Mika's laughter, the way no one even noticed when I left. I didn't cry. I was too tired, too hollow. But I didn't sleep much either. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and bacon. I followed it to the kitchen, where Roz was flipping pancakes like it was just any other Saturday. I sat down quietly. She slid a plate in front of me. "You can stay as long as you want," she said without looking up. I nodded. "Thank you." She glanced at me, and for a moment I saw something in her eyes. Relief, maybe, Or maybe just recognition of something broken and trying to be whole again. I ate slowly, my hands still shaking slightly. Midway through breakfast, my phone buzzed. Text from Mika. "WTF Taryn. You just walked out like a drama queen? Mom's furious. You ruined everything." I didn't respond. Another buzz. "Zach said you're always like this. You make everything about you." I turned the phone over and slid it into my pocket. Rosalind noticed. She didn't say anything, but her jaw tensed. "You don't owe them anything," she said. I know. It still hurt. Even knowing the truth didn't make it stop hurting. That's what no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't feel like anger at first. It feels like grief, like mourning the version of someone you hoped they'd be. Later that afternoon, Rosalind had to run into town. I stayed behind, fed the cat, cleaned up the kitchen. I was taking out the trash when I noticed a box tucked behind the water heater in the laundry room. I almost didn't open it, but something told me to look. Inside there were photos, dozens of them, all of my dad. And under them, letters, unsent letters, every one of them addressed to me, written in his handwriting. My hands trembled as I lifted the first one. "Taryn, I'm sorry I left that way. I wanted to say goodbye, but I knew she'd twist it. I hope one day you'll understand." I sat down on the cold tile floor, clutching the paper. And I realized something in that moment. I hadn't been forgotten. I'd been kept from the truth. I read every single letter sitting cross-legged on the laundry room floor, knees numb from the cold tile, eyes burning from tears I didn't even feel fall. Each envelope was dated, each one written for a birthday, a milestone, or just a Tuesday when he missed me so badly he had to put it into words. "Taryn, today would have been your 14th birthday. I imagine you tall and stubborn, just like your mom, but with my eyes. I hope you're still drawing. I saw one of your designs in a bookstore window. At least I think it was yours. It looked like your style. I stood there for 10 minutes trying not to cry. I wish I could be there for you. I wish I could tell you none of this was your fault." Some of the ink had smudged. A few letters were written on the back of receipts, but none of it mattered. He never stopped thinking about me. And suddenly, every lie my mother ever told me cracked wide open. She didn't just let him go. She erased him. She buried him behind a wall of silence and bitterness so thick that for years, I thought he didn't care. I pressed my hand to my chest. It physically hurt. That kind of deep, soul-splitting ache that makes your fingers curl into fists and your jaw lock up. Rosalind found me there an hour later, surrounded by old envelopes. She didn't ask what happened. She just stepped in, sat down beside me, and started gathering the letters like she already knew what they were. "They were in his apartment when I cleaned it out," she said quietly. "He never stopped writing." I turned to her. "You never sent them?" "I wanted to." "I did." Her voice cracked. "But your mom threatened me. She said if I contacted you again, she'd file harassment charges." I blinked. "What?" "She said you were better off without his weakness. That you were finally becoming something useful." Something inside me splintered again. But this time, it wasn't sorrow. It was rage. Clean, sharp, ice-cold rage. "She stole him from me," I said slowly. "And then she made me believe he chose to leave." Rosalind nodded, but I barely saw her. I was already standing up, gripping a letter so tight the paper started to wrinkle. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Not after this. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the guest bed with my dad's words echoing in my head like a song I couldn't turn off. I kept thinking about the look on my mother's face when I opened that wrinkled bag at brunch, the little curl at the corner of her mouth when she watched me process the humiliation. Like she wanted me to feel small. Like that was the real gift. But this time, I didn't cry. I planned. The next morning, I sat at Rosalind's kitchen table with a cup of black coffee and a spiral notebook. For the first time in years, my hands felt steady. Roz walked in, saw the look on my face, and didn't ask. She just poured herself coffee and said, "Whatever you're thinking, make sure you do it for you, not for her." I nodded. I knew exactly who this was for. For the girl who never got her birthdays remembered. For the teen who believed she wasn't worth a phone call. For the woman who just found out her father never stopped loving her. 2 weeks later, I mailed copies of the letters to myself. Certified mail. Signed and timestamped. Then I uploaded scans of the letters, every last one of them, to a hidden Dropbox folder with a password I memorized. Next, I called the community center, where I sometimes volunteered and asked if they had room for one more speaker at their Voices of Resilience panel next month. They said yes. And then quietly, I posted a message in a local Facebook group. I knew my mother and Mika both followed. Sometimes silence is the loudest kind of cruelty. I'll be sharing my story at the Resilience Night event next Thursday. It's time to speak the truth, for me, and for the father they made me forget. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. Within hours, Mika texted me, "What are you doing? Mom's freaking out. You're making this about you again? Don't air our family's dirty laundry in public." I didn't reply. 2 days later, I got a voicemail from my mom. Her voice was tight, too sweet, the kind of fake calm that masks fury. "Taryn, I think we've had enough drama for 1 year, don't you? Why don't we sit down and talk? Just the two of us, like adults." I didn't call back. The next time she saw me, I was standing on stage under warm lights, in front of a small but full audience, holding one of my dad's letters in my hand. I told the truth. Not in a bitter way. Not to shame her, but to free myself. I talked about what it felt like to grow up thinking you were a burden, about being erased from the narrative of your own life, about rediscovering someone's love through ink and paper long after they were gone. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I stood tall. I finished with one line that had been looping in my head for days. They say grief is love with nowhere to go, but I found somewhere. I found my way back to myself. The crowd stood. People clapped. I stepped off the stage into Rosalind's arms, and across the room by the exit doors I saw them, my mother, Mika, frozen. They hadn't expected this. They'd expected me to fall apart. But I was standing, and I was being heard. Rosalind leaned in and whispered, "Look." I turned. My mom had stormed off. But Mika? Mika was still there, staring at me, holding something in her hand. I squinted. It was one of the letters. My breath caught. "How?" She caught my eye, and mouthed 2 words. "I'm sorry." I kept replaying it in my head. The moment I locked eyes with Mika across the auditorium, the look on her face, the letter clutched in her hand. She mouthed, "I'm sorry." And I didn't know whether to cry or laugh, because for the first time in my life, my sister, the girl who used to call me the family glitch, looked at me like I was more than just background noise. She looked at me like I mattered. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was upset, because I felt awake in a way I hadn't in years. Something had shifted, not just between me and her, inside me. I wasn't the quiet one anymore. Not the one who walked out while they laughed, not the one who cried alone and cleaned up the mess. I had told the truth, out loud, to a room full of people, and for once, I hadn't apologized for it. The next morning, Rosalind handed me a plate of toast and nodded toward the envelope sitting on the kitchen table. "It came for you," she said, "hand-delivered." I stared at it, instantly wary. No return address, just my name in Mika's handwriting. I opened it slowly. Inside was a photo. Mika and I, maybe ages 6 and 9, standing by a Christmas tree in matching pajamas. She was holding my hand. Taped to the back was a short note. "I found this in Mom's drawer. I didn't even know she kept it. I'm sorry I didn't see things sooner. I was so desperate for her approval I didn't realize what she was doing to you. Can we talk? Please." Alone. I set the photo down and stared at it for a long time. Roz didn't push. She just said, "Careful doesn't mean closed off. But you get to choose now, Taryn. On your terms." So I chose. I met Mika at a diner halfway between our neighborhoods. She was already there when I walked in, wearing sunglasses inside like someone avoiding paparazzi, even though nobody cared. Typical. I slid into the booth without a word. She took off the glasses slowly. "I deserved everything you said on that stage," she whispered. I raised an eyebrow. "I didn't say your name?" She gave a small, sad smile. "You didn't have to." I stayed quiet. She fidgeted, picked at her napkin, then blurted, "I read all the letters." The ones Rosalind scanned. I stayed up all night. That stopped me. Wait, how?" She hesitated, then pulled out her phone. I went through your old Dropbox. We used to share it for that school project, remember?" I stared at her. "You hacked me?" "Okay, yeah, that sounds worse than it is. I had to see for myself. I didn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it." My jaw clenched, but something in her voice wasn't defensive. It was ashamed. And that, coming from Mika, was brand new territory. She looked up, eyes rimmed red. "I used to think she was hard on you because you deserved it. That you were moody, dramatic, always pulling away. But now I think maybe you were just protecting yourself." I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to. Mika reached into her purse and pulled out a small notebook. I started writing things down. Things she said to you, did to you, stuff I laughed at before. "It's bad. Taryn, it's really bad." She pushed the notebook toward me. I flipped through it, page after page, dates, quotes, specific incidents, stuff I'd forgotten or blocked out. The time Mom canceled my birthday because Mika was sick and no one would come anyway. The time she called my first design portfolio cheap Pinterest garbage. The time she joked to guests at a barbecue that Taryn wouldn't survive a real job if it didn't let her sulk in a corner. I felt my throat tighten. Mika looked at me, tears brimming. "You were never crazy. She made you feel invisible on purpose. I swallowed hard. Why are you doing this now? Her voice cracked. Because I think she's doing it to me now. That made me look up. She's turning on you? Mika nodded. Zach broke up with me after the event. Mom told me it was my fault for not controlling the narrative. Said I embarrassed the family. Called me selfish. Said I was just like you. The irony was almost too much. Welcome to the other side, I said quietly. She gave a bitter laugh. And then she leaned in, whispering like she was afraid the silverware might be bugged. I think she's planning something. To spin the letters. Say they were forged. That Roslyn faked them to get revenge. I blinked. She's what? Mika nodded. She called a lawyer yesterday, said you were slandering the family name. She's talking about suing Roz. My jaw dropped. She's really that desperate to control the story? She's terrified. You took her power away in front of an audience. That made me pause. Because Mika was right. For the first time ever, Mom wasn't in control of the narrative. I was. And I wasn't done yet. 2 nights later, I called up a local journalist. She ran a popular community blog that exposed shady businesses and social issues around town. I knew her from a nonprofit project last year. I sent her scans of the letters, the notebook, a short essay I wrote about emotional neglect, visibility, and reclaiming your voice. She read it, then called me immediately. This is huge, she said. And it's not just a story, it's a pattern. I bet others have been through the same. The next week, the article went live. The child they erased, one woman's story of family gaslighting, silenced grief, and finding her voice. It exploded. Not viral in a TikTok sense, but quiet viral. People started sharing it, commenting, emailing the blog to say they saw themselves in it, that it made them feel less alone. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore, I was claiming space. But karma? Karma did her thing anyway. Because 2 days after the article dropped, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something told me to answer. A tired voice on the line said, "Is this Taryn? My name's Grace. I'm your father's ex-landlord." I sat up straight. "Yes, that's me." There was a long pause. "Your dad left something for you. He asked me to hold on to it in case you ever found your way back. He said, she'll come looking when she's ready." My heart stopped. "I thought he was just being poetic," she said gently. "But he was right." I met Grace at a quiet little cafe just off Route 7, the kind with chipped mugs and booths that creaked when you sat down. She was older than I expected, late 60s, with soft gray curls and eyes that didn't miss a thing. She slid a cardboard box across the table toward me. It was taped up carefully, my name written across the top in my dad's handwriting. My heart stuttered when I saw it. "I promised I'd keep it safe," Grace said. "He left it with me about a year before he passed. Said he didn't want your mother to get her hands on it. Said he knew one day you'd come looking." My throat tightened. I peeled the tape back slowly. Inside were sketchbooks, 3 of them. The top one had a post-it stuck to the front. For Taryn. "So you'll remember where you came from and how far you're going." I opened it, and I lost my breath. Page after page were drawings of me. As a kid at school, in my Halloween costume at 7, slumped over a table with my first sketch pad. All from memory, all drawn with so much love it was unbearable. And at the very back, one last page. My dad's handwriting, a full letter. "If you're reading this, it means you finally saw through it all. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you the way I wanted to, but I see you now. I see the woman you've become, and I am so damn proud. You didn't just survive them. You became more than they ever could. You became free," I cried. Not the small kind, not the polite kind, the kind that comes from years of pretending you weren't hurt. Grace just sat quietly across from me and passed over a box of tissues like she'd known this would happen. I walked out of that cafe holding the sketchbooks to my chest like they were a second heartbeat, and I knew exactly what I had to do. 3 weeks later, I held a solo exhibit in a community gallery downtown. Not fancy, not commercial, but honest. Every wall was covered in pieces I'd drawn since moving in with Roz. Pieces of healing, of memory, of grief that finally had somewhere to go. In the center was a small pedestal. On it sat the open sketchbook from my dad, the page with his last letter on full display. A sign beside it read, "To the man they erased," and the voice I finally found again. The exhibit got picked up by a local newspaper, then a regional art blog. Then, somehow it went viral, and that's when the real unraveling began. Because someone, not me, dug into my mother's public records. Turns out, she had applied for several community leadership grants over the years. Ones that required documentation of strong family values and upstanding public image. They found videos from my panel speech, quotes from the article, screenshots of her trying to discredit me online. Within a month, her funding was revoked. She was dropped from the community board, and her carefully constructed image shattered. Mika told me she'd never seen Mom cry before, until the day she got that letter from the committee, stripping her of her honorary position at the local chamber of commerce. But I didn't feel joy. I felt finished. Because justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just closes the door. Quietly. Firmly. And this one? I locked it myself. It's been 7 months since that night. I still live with Roz. We turned the guest room into a full studio. I teach free workshops at the library twice a week. I freelance for a nonprofit that supports kids in the foster system, helping them use art to process trauma. Last week, Mika came by with coffee and 3 thrift store sketch pads. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. She's showing up, and that's more than I ever thought I'd get. As for my mother, I haven't spoken to her. Not once. Not since that brunch. And I don't think I ever will. Because some people don't deserve a front row seat to the person you fought to become. I didn't burn the bridge. I just finally realized I was the one holding the match. And I chose to walk away instead. The lesson I learned? Sometimes, family isn't blood. It's the people who choose you when the ones who were supposed to love you chose to hurt you. And forgiveness doesn't mean letting them back in. It just means you don't have to carry them anymore. If you've ever had to heal from the people who should have protected you, I'd genuinely love to hear your story. Leave a comment below, not just to be heard, but to let someone else know they're not alone. And if this story touched something in you, consider subscribing. I've got more to share, and maybe so do you.